Welcome, my young friend. Tonight, you will live in the world of Star Wars, but not as a Jedi, or a Sith, or a commander of fleets. No, tonight, you are just a humble mechanic, stationed deep within the vast corridors of the Death Star. You will hear the hum of distant reactors, smell the heat of scorched circuits, walk among soldiers, droids, and whispers of rebellion, but always from the edge, always from below. You will taste recycled rations, feel the weight of silence between explosions, and witness the great moments of galactic history, not from the bridge of a star destroyer, but from the shadow of a maintenance shaft. So settle in, close your eyes, and let the galaxy surround you. This is your story now. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share in the comments what world you want to wake up in next. Now we begin. You wake with a low-frequency hum of the Death Star pressing into your bones, the sound not of engines, but of mass held in place by gravitational force beyond comprehension. Your eyes adjust slowly to the sterile gloom. The light overhead flickers with the rhythm of a cooling system you reported faulty 3 shifts ago, still unfixed, still pulsing like a dying star behind your eyelids. Your bunk smells of heated plastic and recirculated sweat. The mattress is thinner than protocol allows, but no one from command has walked this level in months. No one of rank, anyway. You sit up, boots already half-laced from last night's collapse, and for a moment, you forget where you are. Not because it's unfamiliar, but because it's identical to every other morning since assignment. When you step into the corridor, your shadow stretches out ahead of you, distorted by the sickly glow of the maintenance lights. Behind you, the door seals with a hiss that sounds more alive than it should. You walk past walls lined with exposed conduit and ventilation pipes, humming with recycled air from sectors you will never see. Somewhere behind those walls are fuel lines that feed the ion engines. Somewhere beyond those engines, stars you'll never visit. You're assigned to Sector G17, mid-tier maintenance. That means you've got enough clearance to walk past stormtroopers without being shoved, but not enough to question the red doors that slide closed just before you arrive. Your job is conduits and atmospheric regulation, keeping the temperature within operational range in the docking bays, ensuring pressure levels stay optimal in the launch corridors, manually checking relays because droids keep misfiring diagnostics. You do your rounds with a toolkit that was standard issue 4 years ago. 1 hinge sticks, 1 sensor flickers. You know its quirks better than you know most of your colleagues. At the end of the corridor, a small cluster of junior techs are gathered by the ration dispenser, whispering with the urgent slowness of people who've been overheard before. You don't stop, but you catch words anyway. Millennium Falcon ... escaped. Vader furious. And then a static snap as someone changes the subject when they see you. You're not sure what to make of it. The name rings familiar. You've heard it before in corridors, in lunch queues, in datapads half-wiped of classified logs. That ship is always just out of reach. A shadow in hyperlane charts, a smudge in targeting readouts. The kind of ship that becomes legend while still being hunted. The lift to the maintenance junction is late again. A red light blinks like a heartbeat over the call button. You wait in silence. Overhead, through the heavy plates of Dory steel and composite shell, the rumble of capital-class turbolasers test-firing echoes like thunder. Practice drills, they say. But you've worked here long enough to know what drills don't sound like. Something is moving outside this station. Ships, orders, purpose. You feel it in the subtle shift of gravity when the battle station adjusts orbit, the weight of something beginning. When the lift arrives, a pair of officers step out. One of them doesn't look at you, standard. The other hesitates, eyes sweeping your badge, then your face. He speaks only once. Clear the service shaft by 1800. Command wants uninterrupted access to Bay Alpha 7. No explanation. No tone. No questions allowed. You nod. because that's what you're supposed to do. Because if you don't, someone will remember your face. Inside the lift, you descend past decks you'll never walk. Medical, barracks, interrogation, archives. Your badge doesn't let you stop there. But the numbers flicker past anyway, one by one, like countdowns. You tighten your grip on the railing. Static hums in the speakers. Someone somewhere is giving orders. The doors open onto your level. Your boots hit the grated floor with a dull clang. The corridor smells faintly of scorched lubricant. Lights flicker here too, more than usual. You begin your round with relay box B42. It buzzes softly. It always does, but today it's uneven. You kneel. You open the panel. You stare into the mess of wires and nodes and cooling fans, and you think, this thing controls part of the docking bay environmentals. If it fails, temperatures spike. If temperatures spike, containment fields destabilize. And if that happens when a Lambda-class shuttle is docking, you pull the fuse. Replace it. The hum evens out. You breathe slowly. In the distance, someone runs. No alarms. Just footsteps, fast and solitary, down the metal spine of the hallway. Then silence again. Your shift has begun. You move to the next checkpoint. The hallway stretches longer than your memory recalls, or maybe it just feels that way because no one is talking. No crew chatter, no buzz of idle droids, no humming from auxiliary lighting strips. Only your boots and breath and the rasp of the rolling toolkit behind you. The Death Star is never quiet, not truly. But today, the noise is different, thinner, as if the walls are holding their breath. You reach a viewport near auxiliary exhaust port 327. You stop not because you're required to, but because it is one of the only places left where you can see the stars without clearance. A narrow, armored slit looking out into nothing. But even through nothing, the faint haze of planet light bleeds in. Yavin 4. That's the moon they're circling now, covered in trees. Rumored to house a rebel base. You don't know much about it. Just whispers. And the sudden increase in alert status 2 cycles ago. 2 stormtroopers walk past behind you. One's shoulder pauldron is orange. Commander class. He says nothing. Neither of them look your way. You stand motionless, hands behind your back, as the Empire taught. Once they're gone, you lean just a bit toward the viewport again. The distant moon stares back at you like an eye with its lid half closed. The maintenance shaft leading to the ventilation array is still sealed. The access terminal beeps red when you swipe your badge. Typical. You crouch, override the panel with manual tools, and slide the access plate free. Inside is dark. You've done this route too many times. The recycled heat, the dry metal, the insulation flaking from age. You crawl forward, elbows grinding against ribbed flooring. Your breath echoes inside your helmet. Dust motes hang in the light like static frozen in place. Somewhere in the guts of the station, a generator kicks in, and the walls thrum with ancient power. Midway through the shaft, you stop. Someone scratched words into the inner panel. Not words, really. A name, then a date, then a code you don't recognize. It's old, maybe years, maybe more. There's something haunting about it, like finding a grave where there shouldn't be one. You keep crawling. When you drop into the junction chamber, the air is hotter. A coolant leak. Not critical, but unlogged. You make a note on your datapad and kneel near the base valve. The seal is damp and hissing. You've patched worse. As you twist the locking ring, you hear voices above, filtered through grating and distance. ... He said the princess is here. Leia Organa, personally captured. No way. That's just... I'm telling you. She spit in Grand Moff Tarkin's face. The voices trail off, and you freeze. Princess, rebel leader, Organa. You've seen her image on briefings, posters, propaganda. a senator once. Now, something else. You didn't even know she was on the station. No one did. You finish the patch in silence. Your hands are steadier now, strangely. Like the body knows the moment demands it. When you rise to leave, your shoulder brushes a pipe and leaves ash from the weld on your uniform. No one will comment. No one notices grime on a tech uniform. On your way back through the access tunnel, the lights flicker out entirely. Not just here, station-wide, for 3 seconds. Darkness, total. And in that silence, you hear nothing. No generators, no hum, not even your own breath. Then, with a low groan, power surges back, dimmer than before, like the Death Star just exhaled. When you emerge into the corridor, a maintenance droid is waiting, hovering silently. It chirps a red warning. Access to docking bay 327 restricted. Report to command subsection 4. You don't ask why. You just walk, and the station watches. You report to command subsection 4 without delay. Not because you re-afraid. Fear is too large a word for the kind of discipline that shapes you now, but because hesitation on the Death Star is its own kind of visibility. You're nobody here, but even nobodies get remembered if they pause in the wrong place for too long. The corridor turns downward, spiraling into the spine of the station. No windows here. No emergency lighting either. Just overhead panels set into the ceiling like watching eyes, blinking red once every 6 seconds. The walls sweat faintly. Not water, but something chemical. The smell of coolant or sterilizer or both, clinging to your nostrils like rot that refuses to die. You pass 3 closed doors, each marked with clearance you don't have. You know better than to look twice. Inside subsection 4, a junior officer with half-shaved stubble and a datapad in his fist waves you toward a terminal. Relay feed to Bay 327 has degraded. You're assigned to restore it. Someone from command's waiting for access to docking readouts. You nod. The man doesn't look up again. That's the end of your briefing. Bay 327. Again. That's where the Millennium Falcon was impounded. Or so they whispered yesterday. Some say it's still there. Others say it was moved. Others still insist it escaped, but that no one dares file the incident report. One tech from Section F claimed he saw Vader board it personally. He hasn't shown up for his last 2 shifts. Maybe he transferred. Maybe he didn't. The walk to Bay 327 takes. You past Corridor 16B, the one that still reeks of charred insulation after last week's S-Systems flare. The panels are half replaced, wiring exposed like veins beneath cracked skin. You glance at them as you pass. They hum louder than they should, as if something underneath is pushing back. When you reach the bay access door, 2 black-armored troopers are stationed outside. Shadow troopers, not stormtroopers. Their helmets lack the silver trim, but their posture says more than rank ever could. You approach slowly. One raises a hand without looking. Identification. You hold up your badge. The trooper scans it. No words. Just a delay, half a second too long. Then the door hisses open. You step inside. The bay is nearly empty. The ship is gone. Where it once sat is now just a square of scorch marks and scratched plating. The imprint of something once tightly docked and now violently departed. The walls are scorched. Overhead beams still bear the carbon stains of blaster fire. No one's cleaned them, which means it happened recently. A lone figure stands on the far side of the bay, near the loading interface. Gray uniform, hands clasped behind his back. He doesn't move when you enter, doesn't turn, just speaks. Why isn't the relay working? You stiffen. The voice is hard, clipped, precise, the kind that doesn't come from people who wait for answers. You glance down. His nameplate reads Lieutenant Clevin. You've seen it on internal memos. Not high command, but close. Dangerous close. Sir, relay surge damage. Likely from the bayside contact. Reboot required 10 minutes. He doesn't respond right away. Then make it 5. You nod. Move. Kneel by the relay port, tools in hand before your thoughts catch up. You work fast, too fast, hands moving with the same mechanical certainty that the droids are supposed to have. But you're better. You still feel when the circuit aligns, when the flow stabilizes, when the hum becomes clean again. This one was dirty. Residual feedback, too much voltage through the sensor relay. Someone hot-wired an override. Likely the Falcon's crew. Risky, brilliant. You say nothing. When the feed clears, you stand. Clevin is already gone. You leave the bay in silence. On your way back to the central spine, the corridor lights flicker again. Shorter this time, but sharper. Like a breath catching in a throat. You hear footsteps behind you, fast and echoing. When you turn, no one's there. Just a slow-moving droid sweeping debris. It looks up at you for too long. The datapad on your belt chirps once. Engineering alert. Reactor feed stability below threshold. That shouldn't happen. Not here. Not now. You press your thumb to the confirm pad. Then you keep walking. And above it all, the Death Star pulses, not like a machine, but like a beast asleep and dreaming of fire. You take the long way back. Not by choice. There is a corridor sealed near Sector H due to floor plate instability, but everyone knows it's just a cover. 2 days ago, someone in sanitation heard screaming behind that bulkhead. No one came to investigate. The wall was patched. The incident was not logged. You still hear the echo of it sometimes in the metal. The Death Star has too many corridors. Too many places where sound goes to die. You pass a canteen, barely lit. Its doors open just wide enough to show the flicker of an outdated holoprojector in the corner. Inside, maybe a dozen workers cluster around metal tables. Technicians, junior officers, 2 custodial staff in gray coveralls stained black from pipe residue. They're not eating, not really, just staring. Half-chewed protein cubes sit in trays, half dissolved in sauce that tastes like copper and regret. You slide into a corner seat without a word. They don't greet you. No one does anymore. Someone mutters. I heard he choked him. With the force, just lifted him. In front of everyone. You don't look. Just sip the gray liquid in your cup. It tastes like heat and rust and whatever compound the ration dispensers haven't cycled out yet. Someone else leans in. What, like a Jedi trick? They're all dead. Not him. He's different. They mean Vader. No one says his name, not directly. Just him. Like a weather pattern or a disease. Another voice, quieter, almost bitter. Whatever the hell that ship was, it got out. That's what matters. The damn thing left a hole in the dock sensors, and I heard command sealed 3 officers in their quarters after the incident. Just locked the doors. Didn't even announce it. Someone snorts. That's nothing. I heard one of them was supposed to testify. No one speaks for a long moment. You stare down into your cup. The liquid reflects the overhead lights, bent and distorted like the stars outside the hull. You rise before anyone else does. The others barely look up. In the corridor, a repair drone clatters past with a busted wheel, sparks trailing behind it like blood. No one follows it. No one logs it. You keep walking. You're scheduled for an inspection sweep of Subsector D later today, but your datapad flags a new order, reroute. Reactor spine, service level. Not a standard call, but not the first time something's been reprioritized without warning. You change direction. As you approach the spine, the walls grow warmer. Subtly, but enough to notice. A few degrees above regulation. Humidity rising. You unfasten the collar of your uniform. It clings to the back of your neck. You pass a viewing bay. Inside is the main power conduit, black, humming, pulsing with raw energy. Thick cables as wide as your torso snake through the walls and vanish into shadow. Red light pulses like a heartbeat. Someone left tools on the railing. Unauthorized. You don't touch them. In the corner of your eye, a reflection. A man, standing still, watching. You turn. No one's there. Your hand brushes the COM panel. You consider logging the anomaly, but you don't. In the next junction, a wall panel is smeared with black soot, but no fire has been reported. You scrape a sample, log the temperature reading, and submit the reading to Central, knowing no one will respond. The Death Star is starting to feel like it's breathing through the walls. Everything feels closer. The ceiling hangs lower. The air moves wrong. The hum of the machinery skips a note, like a heartbeat tripping. You pass a set of officers in formation, marching fast, too fast for routine. Their boots strike in sync. Their eyes don't meet yours. And suddenly, there's a noise, sharp, hollow, like a scream that never reached sound. You freeze. So does everything else. Even the lights hold still for a moment. Then a klaxon pulses once, not loud, not urgent, just dot, dot, dot low, like a warning that doesn't want to be heard. Your datapad pings again. The message is simple. Emergency Diagnostic Central Relay Hub. Immediate. That's deep in the infrastructure spine, near the core. Near the kind of systems no one touches unless something has already gone wrong. You don't ask questions. You move. And behind you, far off in the station's deeper decks, something lets out a sound like metal, remembering what it means to break. You take the service shaft toward the Central Relay Hub. It's narrower than regulation requires, a shortcut only mid-level techs ever use, and only when no one's watching. The overhead pipe leaks warmth. Not heat, but warmth, like skin left under a lamp for too long. You crawl beneath it, eyes adjusting to the flicker of emergency indicators glowing orange along the walls. System stress. Too many reroutes, too fast. Someone's pushing the station harder than its frame was meant to endure. As you reach the bottom platform, the bulkhead door groans open with a mechanical exhale. The air here is denser, sharper, tastes like ozone and dust from wires that haven't been cleaned in a cycle. You step into the hub. It's nearly empty. Just you, the hum of the master relay, and a row of monitors blinking in asynchronous rhythms, like confused eyes trying to stay awake. You approach console C9. It's marked red. Internal diagnostic reads, loopback delay, critical. You kneel, unfasten the panel. Inside, the cables twitch slightly, like veins pulsing under a membrane. You work in silence. No music here, no voices. The only sound is the faint, rhythmic breathing of the station's life support. It feels closer here, more personal, like the walls are listening. You pause. Somewhere far above, you hear movement, not footsteps. Shifting, like weight settling across massive beams. You push the thought away. You've been tired before. Paranoia is just a symptom of overclocked adrenaline. You finish the repair, but you don't leave immediately. Your eyes catch on a small plaque near the terminal, something left behind by a technician before you. Scratched into the metal, barely visible. I served aboard the Executor. Now I clean cables. You stare at the words longer than necessary. The Executor, Vader's flagship. You remember when it first came online. A ship so large it cast shadows across space stations. Some said its presence warped local gravity. Others said it never needed weapons, that just seeing it ended battles. And yet that technician ended up here. So did you. You think of your first cycle, disembarking a standard Lambda shuttle, boots hitting the polished black metal of Bay 12. The awe, the silence, the way even the lights felt ceremonial. They said the Death Star was the future, that you were helping preserve order across a scattered, faithless galaxy. But now the lights buzz wrong. The halls feel cold. The officers walk like they're being watched. And the quiet isn't reverence anymore. It's restraint. You move to the observation slit. Below, the core reactor spirals with terrifying beauty. Blue and white light churning like frozen fire, ringed with conduits as thick as ships. You're not authorized to view this, but no one's guarding it. No one has in weeks. Behind you, the door opens. Footsteps. Heavy. Precise. You don't turn until the voice speaks. Do you know what this place is capable of? You turn. A man stands in the entryway, not in uniform. Cloaked, masked, breath like the hiss of a dying world. His presence presses into the room like gravity. Vader. You freeze. He doesn't look at you, just walks forward, toward the reactor window. You serve. You maintain. But you do not understand. None of them do. He says nothing more. Just stands there, as if listening to something beneath the hum. And then, leave now. You nod, backing away slowly, toolkit in hand, heart pounding so loud it drowns out the system's hum. You exit the chamber. The door seals shut behind you without a sound. You don't breathe until you're 5 corridors away. Even then, your breath feels borrowed. You don't report the encounter. There's no protocol for that kind of moment. No place on the datapad to log. Vader spoke. Vader noticed me. Vader let me live. Instead, you take the lift to the tertiary conduits. It shudders once on the way up, like the station itself is second-guessing the idea of letting you move. When it stops, the doors slide open slower than usual. Not broken, just reluctant. You step out. This level used to be busy. Droids moving equipment, junior engineers inspecting coolant seals, someone always complaining about noise from the turbolasers. Now it's quiet, not empty, just quiet in the wrong way. Too much space between the sounds that remain. You pass a broken panel that no one has fixed for 3 weeks. Inside, wiring hangs like entrails. A single indicator light blinks green, endlessly, uselessly. A loop that should have been shut off cycles over and over again. You consider fixing it, but you don't. Ahead, a droid stands idle. Type SE3, sanitation engineering. Out of place, shouldn't be here. Its optics click softly as you pass. You don't look back. Droids on this level have been behaving strangely, pausing too long in intersections, turning their heads at voices that weren't meant for them. Once, a colleague said he heard one whisper his name. You laughed. At the time. Now you're not sure it was a joke. You reach a side hall that leads to your supply locker. You didn't plan to stop, but your legs decide otherwise. The door slides open with a low scrape. Inside, the same rows of metal racks, the same storage crates, the same faint smell of heated lubricant and dust. You sit for a moment on the low bench, and you remember. You remember the day you received your assignment, standing in a white room, an officer you didn't recognize reading out your post. A technician next to you muttered orbital platform, probably a garbage ring. Then the officer said, Death Star, and everyone went silent. You remember looking it up that night. No details, just a codey name, a promise of order, of unity, of power without rebellion. You never imagined you'd stand inside its veins. A low alert pings from your belt. Atmospheric pressure drop. Not critical. Not yet. You sigh. Pull yourself upright. Return to the corridor. When you reach the ventilation junction, something's off. Not visibly. Just the way the lights feel colder. The way the air sounds too still. You crouch beside the regulator array. Open the hatch. Inside, it's dry. Overheated. There's no condensation. No proper circulation. Someone's diverted power. You tap into the feed. No logs. No command trace. Just a spike in energy draw, traced back to Bay 12. Bay 12, where the Lambda shuttles dock, where escape craft load. You stand slowly. You're not cleared for that deck, but you know where the service shaft runs. You could access the auxiliary junction, see what's really happening. But the moment hangs over you like a weight. Do you want to know? The lights overhead dim, then stabilize. Your datapad vibrates again. Standby mode. System realignment in progress. No one called for a realignment. You walk faster. In the next corridor, you find a discarded helmet. Stormtrooper model TK-421. Its visor is cracked. No blood, just left behind. Like someone took it off and decided not to be that person anymore. You don't touch it. Far ahead, near the next junction, you hear voices. Not whispers, not orders. Just you follow the corridor deeper, your boots striking the floor panels with hollow, deliberate rhythm. Not because you're trying to be quiet, but because the sound reassures you, reminds you the metal is still solid under your weight, that gravity still holds, and the floor hasn't dropped away beneath your station and your breath, and the thin thread of reality that connects you to the last known thing that made sense. Past the second junction, you pass a shattered maintenance drone, its casing scorched, one optical unit still blinking dimly as if trying to recall what happened, or warn you before it fades completely. No log has been filed about it, no repair team dispatched. You scan its tag. The record shows it was decommissioned last cycle. But you saw it working 2 days ago in Vent Sector H. You remember because it whistled as it moved, out of tune, and someone joked that even the machines were losing their minds down here. You turn left. The hallway narrows, not in structure, but in feeling, the overhead lights seeming to press down, growing closer, tighter, as if the station itself is folding inward. A low droning hum builds at the edge of your hearing, reactor bleed-off, maybe, or a signal loop caught in feedback. It pulses once every few seconds, and your chest responds involuntarily, sensing your breath to it, like your body understands something your thoughts do not. A pair of junior crewmen rush past you from the opposite direction. Neither says a word. Their steps are fast, clipped, urgent, but not panicked. Their eyes don't meet yours. Their uniforms are stained with coolant. One of them carries a data core, like it's something fragile, something stolen. You don't ask. You just keep walking. You reach the edge of Bay 12 service perimeter. You aren't allowed here, not without escort, but the checkpoint is unmanned. The security console idle, blinking green in slow rhythm like a dying heartbeat. You swipe your badge. The door doesn't protest. Nothing on the Death Star seems to protest lately. It just ... permits. The air here is colder. Not enough to see your breath, but enough that your teeth click once as you exhale. Far across the bay, you see movement. A shuttle, sleek, Lambda class, standard diplomatic frame. Boarding ramp extended. No insignia on the side, no escort crew visible. A shadow moves within the interior, not rushing, just deliberate, cloaked in white light that flickers from the overhead arcs. Someone is leaving. You duck behind a panel junction. Not from fear, from instinct, from training, from survival. You shouldn't be here. You don't want to be seen. You wait. You listen. You hear a voice. I felt it. He is here. It's a woman's voice. Calm, sharp, wrapped in control. You don't know who she is. You've never heard her before. But she speaks like someone used to command or defiance. Another voice responds. Male. British inflection. Smooth like marble. He won't reach the core. Not in time. Their footsteps fade. The shuttle door begins to close. You retreat before the bay doors cycle shut. No alarms. No announcements. No logs. No proof. As you make your way back toward the lower maintenance shafts, you feel it for the first time. Not suspicion, not unease, but a kind of alignment. The way metal settles before snapping. The way silence waits before thunder. The Death Star doesn't feel massive anymore. It feels full, heavy, pregnant with something about to happen, and everything inside it, the walls, the lights, the people, seems to know. You reach your bunk level without remembering how. You swipe the panel. The door doesn't open at first. Then it stutters, half jams, grinds to one side. You step through. Inside, your quarters look exactly as you left them. Exactly. Which is why it takes you a full 6 seconds to realize your toolkit has been moved, just slightly, by someone who doesn't know how the latch sticks. You scan the floor. Nothing missing. Nothing broken. Just ... touched. You sit down on the bunk, not out of fatigue, but because there's nowhere else to be. The room buzzes faintly. Fluorescent lights above you shift tone, from sterile white to something yellowed, as if the station is lowering its own expectations. Your datapad vibrates once. Core calibration alert. Pressure anomaly detected. You don't move. Outside, somewhere above the bunks, the Death Star groans softly, not like a machine, like a thing trying to remember what it used to be before it was turned into this. Murmuring, urgent, dozens of them. Then, silence. You quicken your pace. The Death Star isn't just holding its breath anymore. It's waiting. You don't sleep. You lie on the bunk with your eyes half closed, not because you're tired, but because keeping them open too long makes the light feel surgical, like it's trying to dissect you from the inside. The hum in the walls never stops. Not loud, but constant, a presence that presses into your skull like hands. Every few minutes the temperature shifts slightly, as if someone somewhere is adjusting the climate controls 1 degree at a time, testing how far they can push the air before someone complains. But no one complains anymore. You rise. The corridors are emptier than usual now. No scheduled patrols, no cleaning droids. A ration dispenser near Section E has a blinking red alert, out of protein gel. That never happens. You stop and stare at it for a moment. There's something surreal about seeing the machine just giving up. You touch the panel. It pings once. Then nothing. Your next task isn't official. The datapad gave no order. You just move toward the lower hangar shafts. You don't know why. Only that the noise in your head, the one that isn't quite a sound, quiets when you walk that way. On the way down, a pair of naval officers stand near a sealed cargo door. Their conversation ends the moment they see you. One nods. The other checks a datapad and frowns like it's just failed him personally. You move past. They don't stop you. You don't speak. Down here, the lights are older, warmer, less clinical. The walls aren't as clean. You spot a streak of rust trailing from a pipe joint. Someone once told you it's not really rust, just a reaction in the alloy from condensed breath over time. You liked that explanation. It made the place seem alive. At a junction between the fuel line access and the orbital thruster matrix, you find a locker ajar. Inside is a uniform. Not tech, not trooper. Officer grade. Folded too neatly. Untouched, no nameplate. A small black patch sits atop it. The imperial crest burned at the corner, as if someone held it over a flame just long enough to wound it, not destroy it. You close the locker. Farther down, you reach a pressure seal that's partially jammed. You reset the maglock manually, something you haven't done in cycles. The process is comforting in its simplicity. Insert tool, depress clamp, hold breath, let the click travel up your arm like a mechanical heartbeat. The door opens with a groan. Inside, Hangar C9. A refueling shuttle rests on its rails, partially disassembled. Not in flight prep, in storage. Dust gathers in the seams. A droplet of oil glistens beneath the fuselage, undisturbed. This ship hasn't moved in weeks. You don't know why you're here. You only know the air tastes sharper here, like the inside of a ship just before launch. You approach the console. It pings, no clearance required. You scroll. Cargo manifests empty. Flight records corrupted. Surveillance data deleted. You tap the last active log. One line. Docking override accepted. Alpha restricted Vader authorization. You step back, not in fear, not surprise, just recognition. Behind you, something shifts. A sound, low and distant, like pressure equalizing through a corridor too long to map. You turn, nothing there. But the lights now pulse in rhythm, not the overheads, the floor panels. The station is breathing. You leave the hangar, slowly, as if moving too fast might draw attention from something you haven't seen yet. The corridor outside is empty again, but the silence has changed. It feels organized now, like it's being maintained, curated, like someone wants you to feel alone, just enough. You reach a lift. It opens before you touch the panel. Inside, the lights are off. You enter. The doors close. You don't choose a destination. The lift moves anyway. No voice announces the deck. No lights blink. Just movement. Just time. And your reflection in the polished interior, staring back, not like a copy, but like something trying to remember what it was before it became you. You walk, not toward anything, not away either. Just forward, because standing still feels like offering yourself to something unnamed. The lights overhead flicker now not from malfunction, but in rhythm, as though following a pattern that means something you can't interpret. A pause, a blink, a longer blink, then stillness, then repeat. You start to count the intervals without meaning to. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. It becomes a second heartbeat, one you didn't choose. A maintenance junction up ahead lies half open, wires exposed like ribs. You kneel beside it, not because it's your task, but because touching something grounded calms your hands. The inside is clean, too clean, as if it's been scrubbed by someone who doesn't understand grime, but understands hiding things. You scan the interior, find a single module missing. Not critical, but specific. A pressure isolation relay tied to blast shielding. Removed recently, sloppily, scratches on the housing. Someone took it fast. You log it, no one replies. You stand, and the hallway feels narrower than before. You reach a viewport. It doesn't look out into space. It looks inward into one of the internal docking spines. What you see shouldn't be visible from here. Dozens of personnel, silent, standing in formation. No movement, no orders, no officers, just standing, facing the far end of the dock where no ship rests, as if waiting for something to arrive that hasn't. You step away. The wall to your left hums, not with power, with vibration, like a voice just below the threshold of hearing. You press your hand to the surface. Feel warmth, not heat. Body warmth. It moves, slowly, like breath behind metal. You keep walking. At the next corner, a janitorial droid moves past, dragging a collection unit filled with uniforms. Not folded, crumpled, dirty. Some still smeared with dried hydraulic fluid, others with something else. It chirps once, identifies you by badge, then says, "Reassignment in progress, stand by," then rolls on. The lights dim again, but only in the corridor behind you. Ahead, an alert panel flashes yellow. A warning, not emergency. Not yet. Stabilization protocol active. Reactor alignment recalibrated. Variance within acceptable margins. You know that language. It means something broke. Badly. And they fixed it just enough to call it fine. You turn left into the crew passage near central spine. The air feels different. Thick. Electrical. The kind of air that clings to hair and skin, that leaves taste behind. like metal and ozone, the kind that comes before lightning. At the end of the hallway, you see someone, a crewman, standing perfectly still, facing away. You slow. You call out, softly. Just protocol. Just habit. They don't respond. You approach. They don't move. You reach them. Their back rises with breath, slow, steady. Their arms hang loose. Then you see the headset in their ears. Not standard, not regulation. Something custom, plugged into a port on the wall. They're listening to something. You place a hand gently on their shoulder. They flinch, not with fear, but like waking from a dream. They turn to you. Eyes wide, mouth dry, voice low. It's not going to work. The alignment. They know. They're just pretending. You say nothing. They shake their heads slowly. Not at you. At everything. We were never supposed to see this far. To live inside it. You know? You don't answer. Because somehow you do. But no one complains anymore. You rise. The corridors are emptier than usual now. No scheduled patrols, no cleaning droids. A ration dispenser near Section E has a blinking red alert, out of protein gel. That never happens. You stop and stare at it for a moment. There's something surreal about seeing the machine just giving up. You touch the panel. It pings once. Then nothing. Your next task isn't official. The beta pad gave no order. You just move toward the lower hangar shafts. You don't know why. Only that the noise in your head, the one that isn't quite a sound, quiets when you walk that way. On the way down, a pair of naval officers stand near a sealed cargo door. Their conversation ends the moment they see you. One nods. The other checks a data pad and frowns like it's just failed him personally. You move past. They don't stop you. You don't speak. Down here, the lights are older, warmer, less clinical. The walls aren't as clean. You spot a streak of rust trailing from a pipe joint. Someone once told you it's not really rust, just a reaction in the alloy from condensed breath over time. You liked that explanation. It made the place seem alive. At a junction between the fuel line axis and the orbital thruster matrix, you find a locker ajar. Inside is a uniform. Not tech, not trooper. Officer grade. Folded too neatly. Untouched, no nameplate. A small black patch sits atop it. The imperial crest burned at the corner, as if someone held it over a flame just long enough to wound it, not destroy it. You close the locker. Farther down, you reach a pressure seal that's partially jammed. You reset the maglock manually, something you haven't done in cycles. The process is comforting in its simplicity. Insert tool, depress clamp, hold breath, let the click travel up your arm like a mechanical heartbeat. The door opens with a groan. Inside, Hangar C9. A refueling shuttle rests on its rails, partially disassembled. Not in flight prep, in storage. Dust gathers in the seams. A droplet of oil glistens beneath the fuselage, undisturbed. This ship hasn't moved in weeks. You don't know why you're here. You only know the air tastes sharper here, like the inside of a ship just before launch. You approach the console. It pings, no clearance required. You scroll. Cargo manifests empty. Flight records corrupted. Surveillance data deleted. You tap the last active log. One line. Docking override accepted. Alpha restricted Vader authorization. You step back, not in fear, not surprise, just recognition. Behind you, something shifts. A sound, low and distant, like pressure equalizing through a corridor too long to map. You turn, nothing there. But the lights now pulse in rhythm, not the overheads, the floor panels. The station is breathing. You leave the hangar, slowly, as if moving too fast might draw attention from something you haven't seen yet. The corridor outside is empty again, but the silence has changed. It feels organized now, like it's being maintained, curated, like someone wants you to feel alone just enough. You reach a lift. It opens before you touch the panel. Inside, the lights are off. You enter. The doors close. You don't choose a destination. The lift moves anyway. No voice announces the deck. No lights blink. Just movement. Just time. And your reflection in the polished interior, staring back, not like a copy, but like something trying to remember what it was before it became you. You walk, not toward anything, not away either, just forward, because standing still feels like offering yourself to something unnamed. The lights overhead flicker now not from malfunction, but in rhythm, as though following a pattern that means something you can't interpret. A pause, a blink, a longer blink, then stillness, then repeat. You start to count the intervals without meaning to. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. It becomes a second heartbeat, one you didn't choose. A maintenance junction up ahead lies half open, wires exposed like ribs. You kneel beside it, not because it's your task, but because touching something grounded calms your hands. The inside is clean, too clean, as if it's been scrubbed by someone who doesn't understand grime, but understands hiding things. You scan the interior, find a single module missing. Not critical, but specific. A pressure isolation relay tied to blast shielding. Removed recently, sloppily, scratches on the housing. Someone took it fast. You log it, no one replies. You stand, and the hallway feels narrower than before. You reach a viewport. It doesn't look out into space. It looks inward into one of the internal docking spines. What you see shouldn't be visible from here. Dozens of personnel, silent, standing in formation. No movement, no orders, no officers, just standing, facing the far end of the dock where no ship rests, as if waiting for something to arrive that hasn't. You step away. The wall to your left hums, not with power, with vibration, like a voice just below the threshold of hearing. You press your hand to the surface. Feel warmth, not heat. Body warmth. It moves, slowly, like breath behind metal. You keep walking. At the next corner, a janitorial droid moves past, dragging a collection unit filled with uniforms. Not folded, crumpled, dirty. Some still smeared with dried hydraulic fluid, others with something else. It chirps once, identifies you by badge, then says, "Reassignment in progress, stand by," then rolls on. The lights dim again, but only in the corridor behind you. Ahead, an alert panel flashes yellow. A warning, not emergency. Not yet. Stabilization protocol active. Reactor alignment recalibrated. Variance within acceptable margins. You know that language. It means something broke. Badly. And they fixed it just enough to call it fine. You turn left into the crew passage near central spine. The air feels different. Thick. Electrical. The kind of air that clings to hair and skin, that leaves taste behind. Like metal and ozone. The kind that comes before lightning. At the end of the hallway, you see someone, a crewman, standing perfectly still, facing away. You slow. You call out, softly. Just protocol. Just habit. They don't respond. You approach. They don't move. You reach them. Their back rises with breath, slow, steady. Their arms hang loose. Then you see the headset in their ears. Not standard, not regulation. Something custom, plugged into a port on the wall. They're listening to something. You place a hand gently on their shoulder. They flinch, not with fear, but like waking from a dream. They turn to you. Eyes wide, mouth dry, voice low. It's not going to work. The alignment. They know. They're just pretending. You say nothing. They shake their heads slowly. Not at you. At everything. We were never supposed to see this far. To live inside it. You know? You don't answer. Because somehow you do. You leave the crewmen where they stand, still half anchored to whatever they heard through that headset. Whatever fragment of transmission they weren't supposed to access, but couldn't stop listening to. Their hands don't move, not even to unplug. Their lips repeat something silently as you walk away. A pattern, maybe, or a word. But you don't look back. Not again. There's a feeling now in the base of your spine that looking too long at anything might make it real in ways it wasn't before. You descend another level. The lift is non-functional, so you take the emergency access ladder. Each rung is colder than the last. Metal that should have been temperature controlled now bites into your palms like it's been left outside in vacuum. At level -42, the hatch groans open. The lights here are dimmer. Not broken, fading as if some energy source is being rerouted away, slowly starving this part of the station. A pair of officers pass you in silence, their faces drawn, lips pale, eyes flickering not with exhaustion but doubt. One holds a data pad upside down. You don't point it out. They don't stop. Their footsteps sound uneven, like one is dragging their heels deliberately, like they don't want to reach wherever they're being sent. You reach a diagnostics terminal at the edge of your maintenance sector. You check your log. No official tasks pending. But 3 new routine check orders have been marked with a clearance level above yours, still assigned to your ID. No signatures. No origin. You tap into one. It traces back to a pressure manifold outside the core. Deep core. Not technically accessible without a 5-man team and an override droid. The system wants you to go there alone. You close the pad. You don't delete the request. You just let it sit. The hallway groans around you, a long structural flex like the metal is remembering its own weight. This isn't new. The Death Star always does this, but never this often. Not this low. Not without a reason. You follow the corridor to the auxiliary hangar rim. A viewing window shows a dry dock where a TIE fighter once rested. Now the deck is bare. The loading arms twitch occasionally, as if still rehearsing the movements they no longer perform. You see a trail of black fluid leading from the clamps to the far end of the hangar wall. No sign of cleanup crew? No log entry. Then your pad vibrates again. Not an alert, a message. Evac Protocol 17 initiated. Clearance required. High command. Your heart skips once. Not because you know what that means, but because you've never seen it used. Not even in simulations. Not even in drills. You try to trace the command. It's encrypted, layers above anything you're allowed to see. But you can follow the echo, and it leads to every hangar bay on the station. You pause, then tap a second command. Search. Active escape pods status. Result. All pods locked. External override engaged. You breathe slowly. Let it settle into your ribs like smoke. Outside the corridor, an overhead light shatters, not loudly. Just a soft crack and a hiss of filaments burning out. The glass doesn't fall. It hangs there, fractured, like it hasn't made up its mind whether to collapse. You begin to hear voices again. In the pipes, not speech, not whisper, just a flow, like breath echoing through steel lungs. You've heard it before, just once. The night Alderaan was destroyed, when the power surged so hard, the bulkheads rattled for hours. When the temperature spiked, then dropped, like the station was sweating through metal skin. You pass a junction. Someone has written on the wall in black ink, "We are the last thing it eats before it sleeps." You don't stop. You don't want to know who wrote it. Somewhere behind you, a klaxon pulses. Not red, amber. A warning. Not yet an alarm. You know what that means. Something has changed. Something real. but no one is ready to say it aloud. The air tastes different now, like metal on the edge of lightning, that kind of moment right before power arcs, before metal bends, before systems fail, before light becomes fire. And somewhere in the marrow of the station, you feel it preparing to end. You descend into one of the older maintenance rings, places the newer staff avoid, not because they're dangerous, but because they were designed to be forgotten. The doors don't open automatically here. You have to press the panels twice, sometimes 3 times. The lights flicker not from damage, but from old age. Even on the Death Star, age finds a way to rot the edges. You pass a cargo junction and catch sight of movement just before it vanishes. A figure, gray uniform, moving too quickly. No ID visible, no rank, no reason to be here. You follow, but when you turn the next corner, the space is empty. A ventilation fan spins slowly overhead, blades catching the light like a broken signal. You stop at a security terminal, not because you were ordered, but because you need to know where everyone has gone. The logs show multiple evacuations from the central core. No reason listed, no departure times, just names, just clearances, all redacted. One line stands out. Command tier reallocated. Operational silence authorized. You check the timestamp. 21 minutes ago. Your datapad pings again. This time, no alert. Just a silent icon in the corner. EVAC. Deferred, received, deferred. You try to open the feed. The system hangs. Reboots, wipes. The screen goes dark. You stand in the flickering light of the corridor and realize for the first time that you're alone, not just in space, but inside silence itself. The kind of silence that doesn't wait for an answer, only for the moment it's allowed to break. From somewhere deeper, a deep structural clang shudders through the walls. Not an explosion. A shift. A misalignment. Something large and central that no longer fits the way it was designed to. Something vital has moved. Your beeps. One line. Return to relay spine. Core fluctuation at 12.3%. You've never seen that number above 2.6. You move. And every step feels like walking on the skin of something alive, holding its breath. You reach the relay spine by access tunnel because the lifts have stopped responding. Not locked. Not jammed. Just ... waiting. The kind of waiting that feels deliberate, designed. As if some unseen part of the station is filtering requests now, deciding who still gets to move and who doesn't. The tunnel smells like old wiring and scorched dust, the scent of something that overheated and kept running anyway. You have to crawl for part of it, elbows grinding against metal, every breath louder than it should be. The air gets thinner by degrees, not dangerously, not yet, but enough that your lips taste of iron. When you emerge, the relay spine doesn't look right. The lights are on, but the hum is off. Too high-pitched, too smooth. The familiar undercurrent of vibration you've felt under your boots for months is gone, replaced by something sharper, faster, almost like a tremor held just below the threshold of panic. The room is not empty. A technician you recognize, Bren, stands by the central terminal, his face pale, his fingers hovering over a manual bypass. You call his name once. Quiet. He turns slowly. They're not responding anymore, he says. Engineering, command, even internal security. You approach. He doesn't move. I tried to run a relay scrub, but the core's not ... accepting. It knows the commands. It just doesn't want them now. You stand beside him and look at the terminal. Raw core fluctuation is now 14.2%. Power draw is in the red. Emergency coolant has been rerouted to a non-existent subsystem, something labeled Ghost Tower. You both stare at that name for a while. Bren exhales. I think they're lying to the station, trying to hold it together with fake commands. I think it knows. A deeper pulse rolls through the floor. Not sound, just movement. Like a breath from beneath your feet. Suddenly, one of the control screens flares red. Magnetic containment decoupled. Sector 9. Bren stares. That's not a leak. That's a bleed. Something's letting pressure out on purpose. You grab the rail as another pulse hits. Harder, angrier. A panel on the far wall bursts open. Cables snapping like tendons. Sparks scatter across the floor. The lights dim to half intensity, then surge too bright. The entire room feels like it wants to lift off its own walls. Bren says softly, "They're not telling us to evacuate. They've already gone." You turn to the console. Try the escape pod log again. Access denied. Override lock. You try internal broadcast. Nothing. You try command ping. Nothing. You try to contact anyone. Nothing. Just the flicker of the relay. And the rising heat in the walls. You look to Bren. If we go to the subframe hangars. But he's already shaking his head. Sealed 2 hours ago. I tried. The droids won't open them. He lifts his eyes. His voice steadier than you expected. I think we're inside the thing they built. And now it's doing what it was always meant to do. Behind him, one of the wall panels splits vertically with a low metallic shriek. Heat floods in. The screen shows new lines of warning. Core ramp sync error. Alignment lost. Pressure breach imminent. You don't move. You just watch as the words scroll past like names on a gravestone. The Death Star is no longer operating. It's becoming. You run. Not because you think there's a place to reach, not anymore, but because the body still believes in forward motion. Because the brain hasn't caught up to the truth your skin already knows. Because even in the heart of something this large, this godlike, this impossible, you are still small enough to think steps matter. Behind you, the relay core shatters. Not explodes, shatters, like ice under pressure, like glass flexing too long. The sound follows you down the access tunnel, not as noise, but as a force, a breath that shoves through the air, through the walls, through you. Your ears pop, your knees buckle. You stagger. The hallway lights switch to red. Not warning lights, final lights. The kind you only see once. A voice, mechanical, warped, too slow to be human, begins speaking through the walls. Containment failure in progress. Atmospheric collapse initiated. Emergency egress, then silence. Not interruption, just abandonment. As if the system itself gave up mid-sentence. You push forward. Your hands scrape against the hatch frame, not from urgency, but from habit. You've been rerouted 3 times in the last hour without explanation. Everything still works, but none of it moves the way it used to. Lifts hesitate. Doors open too quickly or not at all. The station feels busy, but not with maintenance. Somewhere above, something's happening, but you don't have the clearance to know what. You reach the junction at Section 12, one of the auxiliary intersections near the docking shaft. The plating is clean, swept more thoroughly than usual. A pair of stormtroopers stand watch nearby, not standard patrol, but posted. You don't ask why. You don't speak. One of them watches you for a moment longer than necessary, then returns to scanning the corridor. On the floor nearby lies a half-emptied toolkit, not yours. Someone left in a hurry. You kneel, recognize the code etched into the side. Bren, from Relay Diagnostics. He'd been reassigned UpCore last cycle. You make a note. You'll ask if he's back. You climb the next set of service stairs towards subdeck L9. As you reach the midpoint, a wave of noise echoes from the docking bays. Not loud, but rhythmic, heavy, coordinated. The sound of troops moving in formation. Too many for a drill. You stop. You listen. A voice behind you, clipped and precise. They're loading strike teams again. You turn slightly. Technician badge. Older man. His eyes are tired. Saw a Lambda shuttle with red insignia. Command level transport. Who was on it? He shrugs. Didn't see. But someone said they heard Tarkin's voice in the corridor outside Hangar 4. You nod once and keep moving. You've heard enough to know when to stop asking questions. At the base of L9, a service door hangs slightly ajar. Inside, 3 figures sit hunched over a cracked open console. One of them glances up as you step in. You with command? You shake your head. He gestures to the floor. Sit, it doesn't matter anymore. You do. The floor is warm. Thermal lines pass beneath this corridor. The smell of ion residue still lingers. One of them hands you a small container of thick, recycled water. You take a sip. The taste hasn't improved. They're staring at the terminal. Junctions locked. Not from burnout. Someone upstream closed access. Security lockdown? Or someone hiding something? Another figure chuckles. Or someone finally unplugged the damn thing and walked out. No one laughs. You sit in silence a few minutes more. Someone mutters. Any word from detention? Another shrugs. Someone said they saw a girl in white escorted by troopers. Could have been an officer's daughter. Could have been the princess. Leah Organa? I didn't say that. You nod. You leave. You pass the corridor leading to Hangar Bay 327. A pair of blast doors are locked shut, but the noise from inside filters through. Shouting, equipment being dragged, a ship cycling power. You hear an unfamiliar voice, sarcastic and loud, echoing against the durasteel. I don't care what system you ran it through. That's not my fault. Another voice, younger, urgent. We've got to move, Han. You don't slow down. You keep walking. A service droid clatters past you in the opposite direction, carrying medical gear. Its internal ID blinks in red. Secured passenger level 5 priority. It shouldn't be here. You file it mentally and keep going. You reach your own section, G17 Relay Diagnostics. The panel flashes green as you approach. No anomaly detected. The door opens normally. Inside, everything looks untouched. And yet, something feels misplaced. Not wrong, just adjusted. You check the status report. Manual overrides have been set 3 times since your last login. No names, no signatures, no timestamps. You kneel by the junction. It's not dead. It's quiet. You run a test signal. The system responds, but with latency, like someone else is already using the channel for something you can't see. You back out of the command screen and close the panel. Your datapad buzzes. Bridge communication redirect. Temporary hold, standby. You scroll back. The last note says, presence confirmed. Awaiting extraction order. You frown. No sender. A voice passes behind you in the hall. Officer's voice, clipped. He's already with the Grand Moff. Vader's en route. Another responds. He won't like that the prisoners escaped. The voices fade. You remain seated beside a junction that works exactly as it's supposed to, and yet has never felt less in your control. Around you, the station hums with quiet precision, like it's preparing for a maneuver no one's been briefed on. No alarms. No alerts. But everyone moves like something is coming. And whatever it is, it's already inside. You leave the diagnostics room without closing the panel behind you. You tell yourself you'll return to it later, but you won't. Something shifted, not in the systems, in you. You pass back into the corridor, where the lights seem steadier now, almost alert. There's movement up ahead. Officers. Fast. Controlled. One of them holds a datapad clutched so tight it might snap. He says into a wristcom, target has been confirmed. Sector control awaiting fire sequence authorization. No one around him speaks. Their boots echo in perfect unison. You flatten yourself against the wall until they pass. You step back out and notice something you shouldn't. A squad of troopers escorting a prisoner in white. Her hair is coiled, her posture straight despite the binders. You glimpse her face for only a moment before she disappears around a corner. A princess. It can't be anyone else. And yet, no one around you reacts. Later, you stop in a service hallway beside the auxiliary communications hub, a zone often patched but rarely monitored directly. Through the vent panel, you hear voices. Quiet, urgent. We're not going that way. It's suicide. We can't go back either. They've locked down detention. The first voice sounds older, cynical, irritated. Wonderful. Just what I needed. A hallway full of stormtroopers and a kid with a blaster. The second voice cuts through the static. We have to get to the hangar. You don't move. You listen. You hear something crash, metal against metal. The sound of a plan breaking. Then footsteps retreat. The voices are gone. You move again, and for a moment, absurd, impossible. You wonder if you just heard Han Solo. You head downward, not toward your assigned station, but toward one of the older mechanical spines of the structure, where wiring from the station's earliest construction still pulses beneath layers of retrofits. You pass a logistics clerk whispering into a comm panel. I don't know who authorized it. All I know is that an entire cell block is dark. Which one? A-23. You slow your pace. A-23. You've heard that designation before. Not from files. Not from protocols. From overheard stories. That's where they were keeping her. You turn a corner and nearly collide with an officer. Thin, pale, with dark lines under his eyes. He doesn't apologize. Just stares, as if measuring your uniform. Your maintenance? You nod. Good. This corridor needs recalibration. Tension in the plating. You glance at the wall. It's perfect. Flat. Cold. Of course. He turns to leave. Pauses. If anyone asks, you didn't see me. He's gone before you can respond. You don't know his name. You don't want to. You find yourself back near the detention perimeter. Not within the blocks, but within the echo of them. A pair of troopers are talking near a cargo lift. That blast came from inside. No way. Someone opened a hatch. Internal sabotage, maybe. You think it's the rebels? What else would it be? I don't know, man. Vader's involved now. He was on the same level. I saw his cape myself. You don't stay long. You drift through the station now like you've become part of it. Not crew, not cog, but echo. The same hallways. The same hum. The same sense that everything's being rerouted without explanation. In the mess hall, mostly empty, you hear two techs murmuring over a datapad. They say the Falcon is docked. Impossible. That ship's been flagged in 6 systems. Still, I saw it. Bay 327. You recognize the name, the ship. You've read reports. You've seen the bounty notices. That Falcon, one tech adds. And the kid with it, rumor is he's Skywalker. The other laughs. Skywalker's dead. That name died on Tatooine with his old man. The first doesn't laugh. You sure about that? You stand. You leave your tray half full. You can't eat anymore. You walk back toward the engine core levels. You tell yourself it's for work. But really, you're following the rhythm of a place that no longer tells you where to be, only what not to ask. As you descend the metal stairwell, your hand brushes against the rail. It's warm, not from heat, from presence. The hum beneath the station is louder now, more focused, like it's listening back. You descend deeper, through a stairwell that no longer hums in mechanical rhythm, but instead, listens. You pause halfway between decks. The lights above buzz, dim, return. Something moves in the air, not current, not breeze, just shift. Like mass being displaced without motion. Like someone large, ancient, and without weight has passed this way. You grip the rail tighter. It's not the heat that makes your palms sweat. Down the corridor, a voice crackles from the wall intercom. Harsh, commanding. Relay engineer, report to Section 3V. Now, under priority order. A pause, per instruction. From Lord Vader. Your chest tightens, not from fear of the name, but from how casually it's spoken, as if it were a rank, as if the voice it carries is just another layer of steel, cold, impersonal, inescapable. You change direction. No one stops you. No one asks if you're supposed to be here. They know you wouldn't be moving unless summoned. As you pass deck D3, the temperature drops. You glance at the wall vent, open, exposed, no coolant flow. Yet the air has chilled. You hear footsteps ahead, sharp and deliberate. Then silence, then breath. You round the corner and see them. 2 stormtroopers standing still, not guarding, just standing. Between them, the corridor empties into darkness. You don't walk into it. You wait. And then, a voice. Not directed at you, but spoken just loud enough. This station is compromised by familiarity. Another voice responds, strained, respectful. We've locked all auxiliary access, my lord. And yet, they walked free. Silence. Intensify the scans. The boy must not escape. Your breath catches. You hear the movement of robes. Boots against metal. The sound of absence that follows him. And then, gone. You never saw him. But you felt it. Not just presence. Pressure. Like the space around your bones shrank. Like the room was remembering something older than its walls. You back away. And one of the troopers, without looking, speaks. You're cleared. Proceed. You don't ask why. You continue. At Section 3V, you find the panel already opened. The relays are active. Nothing is damaged. A data spike has been inserted. Unknown code encrypted beyond your clearance. Someone has already done the job. You're just here, to see, to witness. Your datapad vibrates once. A single message. No response required. No name, no origin, no log. You walk away. As you reach the junction, you pass a pair of junior officers murmuring low. There's no official log of Skywalker boarding. No transmission, no scan. And yet 3 corridors just lost gravity for 8 seconds. 8 seconds? Yeah, like a breath held by the ship. You keep walking. In the next hallway, the floor slants gently to the left, not by design. You step carefully. Ahead, the wide transparisteel viewport opens onto the hangar. You look down. You see the Falcon, still there. And you see him, a young man, moving toward it, blaster drawn, cloak pulled across his shoulders. You only catch a glimpse, the back of his head, the shape of his walk. But you know it's him, even without knowing why. The view blinks dark. Blast shields close. You remain for a few moments longer, as if waiting for something else to appear. Nothing does. You turn and walk back into the station's corridors, where nothing makes sense, but everything still functions. For now, you return to your quarters, not because you're tired, but because you've run out of places where you're supposed to be. And when the door hesitates before opening, you stand still, watching its mechanism flicker with indecision, like the station is weighing your presence against its fading memory of what authorization means. The room is as you left it, a bunk, a shelf, a wall monitor stuck on an old frame from last week's diagnostics, its image now a jittering mess of static and frozen overlays, refusing to let go. You sit at the edge of the bed, remove your gloves slowly, feeling the faint grooves in your palms that remember the vibration of overloaded cables, overheated junctions, and tools that never fit quite right. Outside the door boots pass. 2 sets not stormtroopers lighter. You lean back against the wall and close your eyes. Not to sleep, but to find stillness in a place where even silence feels like a temporary setting. And when your datapad vibrates, it's not a surprise, only an inevitability. The message reads, Section H2 magnetic locks offline. Manual reset required. No name, no additional context, just a task. You pull on your jacket again and head into the corridor. The journey to H2 is uneventful until you pass the turbolift junction, where you see them. Black-armored soldiers without unit markings, unfamiliar silhouettes, standing motionless like decorations with weapons. And when one of them glances at you, it's not with suspicion, but with the cold indifference of someone who already knows you're irrelevant. The locks at H2 aren't broken. They've been shut down intentionally. Override codes entered with precision that doesn't belong to routine sabotage. And when you bring the systems back online, nothing resists, almost as if the system wants to pretend it was never interrupted. You leave the panel open and submit a diagnostic note you know no one will read. On the way back, you drift toward the hydroponics bay, not out of necessity, but curiosity. And when you find the door half open, warm air hits your face, thick with moisture and the scent of soil, something almost living. Inside, a man in faded coveralls tends to green stalks growing beneath artificial light. When you speak, didn't to know this place was still operational. He looks up, his face lined, a scar across his cheek, eyes like old glass. Nothing's really operational, he replies. Just tolerated. You don't ask why he's here. He doesn't ask who you are. He says they used to let officers eat greens from here before the Empire decided dry protein was more efficient. You nod. Why still maintain it? He shrugs. Because no one told me to stop. You leave him there, lit by violet growth lamps, and descend further toward Deck 9. The freight bay is empty, save for one sealed container labeled property of Alderaan Diplomatic Envoy. You stop, stare. Alderaan is gone. You remember hearing it, third hand, like a weather update in the mess hall. No context, no warning, just a word that meant a world, now meaning absence. The crate hums faintly. You step away. Later, you find a bench near the recycling tanks, and on it sits a woman in officer's black, her hair pinned high, boots crossed at the ankle. She doesn't look at you, but when she speaks, her voice is casual. You look like you've seen a ghost. You nod. Maybe. She taps her boots once. You think this place is haunted? You pause. I think it remembers. She smiles at that. A slow, knowing curve. That's worse. Neither of you speaks after that. Eventually, she stands and disappears down a corridor that no longer registers as familiar. You don't follow. You return to your section, check the feeds, and most respond. Sluggish, but functional. One camera shows an empty hangar. Another, black screen. You tap. Nothing. You log a report, but you don't send it. You sit in the chair, eyes closed, not asleep, just listening to the heartbeat of steel and distance. The station continues to orbit. Still intact, still humming, still pretending. The lights in your section dim again, but it's not failure, it's hesitation. You know the difference now. Circuits that fail go dark all at once. Circuits that hesitate flicker, like they're trying to decide whether their job still matters. You log the voltage drift, note the odd sync pattern, then shut the pad. You don't need the data. You already know how it feels. You step into the corridor and head toward the upper mechanical ring, not for orders, not for repairs, but because you feel the pressure there. Not physical pressure, something else. Like noise that hasn't started yet. You reach the lift junction. It answers late. You ride up alone. The hallway near Section 5C is emptier than usual, but the air smells of boot polish and ozone, signs of rank. You hear voices before you turn the corner. Not shouting, not commands. Just low tones, measured, final. You slow your steps. On the far side of the corridor, two officers stand near a closed blast door, flanked by black-armored troopers. One of the officers is speaking into a com. He's still in the detention wing. The farm boy? You stop. Not fully, just enough for the words to settle. The other replies, "Then Lord Vader will deal with him directly." No names are exchanged. They don't look up. You pass them like a shadow. Further down, you hear mechanical breath. Not close, not loud, but real. The kind that isn't processed by machines, but causes machines to process differently. It fades before you reach the next corridor, but you carry its weight like static on your skin. At the next corner, a technician you vaguely recognize gestures to you. "Your relay crew?" You nod. "Come on," he says. "They're calling us to seal off auxiliary power feeds." No idea why. You follow him through a hatch that barely opens. Inside, another crew is gathered. 5 in total, all wearing different badges, different patches. One looks up. You hear about the droids? You shake your head. They were in the detention block. One of Unggold skinny talks like an admiral's ghost. They got out. No logs, no trace. Command's fuming. Someone else laughs, short and bitter. They always underestimate the ones that dawn to carry. You take the long route back to your quadrant, not because it's required, but because straight lines now feel suspicious, as if the shortest path carries more weight than your footsteps can bear. And as you move through the quieter halls, the air begins to feel thinner, not from decompression, but from something more elusive. Like atmosphere that's been partially forgotten, not entirely withdrawn, but neglected by the systems designed to manage it. You pass by a junction box humming in the wrong frequency, too low and too irregular, and you make a note in your head, but don't. Stop to inspect it, not because it is unimportant, but because it's too consistent in its wrongness to be accidental. As you enter the corridor near detention block a 20, you notice that the floor panels have been realigned, not repaired, just shifted, like someone with authority walked through and didn't want their steps recorded. There's still residue along the seams. Thermal scoring, too fine for trooper blasters, too deliberate to be panic fire. You don't linger. You turn a corner and find a door half open to a side maintenance shaft. Someone's inside. You step closer, slow. A boy's voice, not angry, not afraid, just determined. "I know what I saw." A pause. A woman responds, low and firm. "What you saw doesn't matter. What you do next does." You freeze, just beyond view, heartbeat pressed into your palms. A third voice, calm and older, too old for this place, speaks. "The Force will guide us. It always has." You don't breathe. You don't move. Then a sound like cloth brushing metal, a gentle shift of weight and silence. When you look, the room is empty. You walk backward without realizing it, 2 full steps before your mind catches up to your legs. You turn and move on, faster than before, not because you're afraid, but because something in that space no longer wants to be observed. You end up near the drone docks, where broken astromechs are laid out like bones in a temporary grave. One of them, a red-striped R2 unit, twitches slightly as you pass. Its dome is cracked. Its status light flashes yellow, then green, then off. You check the registry. It was assigned to Bay 327. That's near the Falcon. You stare a second longer than you should. The little droid chirps, broken, like a memory trying to reboot. At the central mess, there are fewer people now, fewer voices, fewer trays. A man at the counter says nothing when you walk in. You grab a ration, sit alone. At the table beside you, 2 pilots speak in hushed tones. Vader didn't kill them. Then who did? They found 6 guards down. No blaster wounds. No carbon scoring. Just still. One of them shakes his head. He doesn't use weapons like we do. He doesn't need to. Their voices trail off. You return your tray without finishing the meal. Later, in the relay subchamber beneath Engineering Deck 4, you hear a siren. Soft, muted, not an alert, but a pulse, like a heartbeat in metal. You follow the sound until you find a sealed conduit flashing low red. It shouldn't be active. You override the panel. Inside, nothing. No fault, no heat, just that sound. Like something large waiting in the dark. You close the panel slowly. On your way out, you cross paths with a medic pushing an empty gurney. Her gloves are stained. Not blood, grease, burn. She doesn't speak as she passes, but something in her eyes registers not recognition, not fear, just exhaustion that knows too much. As you turn toward the lift, you hear static from the overhead speaker, a flicker of sound that catches a phrase mid-broadcast. ... Skywalker has entered. Then silence. The voice wasn't synthetic. It was human. Tired. Strained. You look up, but the speaker's dead again. No light, no repeat. Just that one phrase, hanging. You don't write it down. You don't need to. You already know something has changed. Weapons. The laughter dies quickly. You get to work rerouting the feed, hands moving automatically, thoughts trailing behind. Later, in the turboshaft, you feel the shift again, that quiet wrongness. The way your weight adjusts without the floor changing, like gravity is remembering something it shouldn't. You step out near Deck 6 and see scorch marks along the wall. Not from an overload. Blaster fire, not cleaned, not reported. Just left. 2 junior officers pass behind you, whispering too loud to be careful. He killed the whole squad himself. That's just a story. No, someone said they saw him, the boy. He didn't miss. That's not training. That's something else. They walk away. You crouch near the blackened panel, touch the residue. Still warm, not fresh, but recent enough to matter. You don't log it. You don't mark your presence. You just walk. At the refueling gantry near Hangar 12, a man is standing alone, watching space through the viewport. His uniform is officer grade, but worn unevenly, sleeves rolled, gloves gone. You stop beside him without speaking. He doesn't look at you. That ship that left an hour ago? The one that got through the shield? You nod. They say it wasn't alone. He tilts his head slightly. They say someone stayed behind. Voluntarily. He doesn't explain. You don't ask. He walks away. You stay a moment longer, watching the stars. They look closer than they should. Then you turn and head back into the station's spine, and it breathes behind you. Not with purpose, just with persistence. Like it refuses to stop until you do. You don't go back to your quarters after that. The idea of returning to a space with walls that remember who you were yesterday feels wrong now. Like stepping back into a skin you've already shed. Instead, you follow the auxiliary vent corridors, the ones meant for diagnostics and covert refueling, but used more often now for avoiding questions. These halls are quieter, narrower, and older in how they breathe, like they were built before the rest of the station realized it was a weapon. As you move, the lights don't flicker, but pulse, not with energy, but indecision. You touch one panel in passing and feel warmth, not from circuitry, but from memory, as if the station itself is beginning to remember things you never lived. You pass an old junction once used by reconnaissance droids, and near the panel, someone has scratched a symbol into the wall. A circle split by a single vertical line. You've seen it before, maybe on a datapad, maybe in a dream, but never with this much weight. A small note lies folded beneath the panel. You don't touch it. As you move deeper, you cross paths with a group of troopers, not in formation, not with purpose, but drifting, their helmets off, talking low. One of them says, "They said the princess refused to talk even after he went in." Another one shakes his head. They say she's not afraid of anything, not even him. A third whispers, "You should have seen the general's face when she spat blood on his boots." You look away before they notice you listening, and you keep walking until the voices are just echoes pressed flat by the weight of metal. In the generator corridor, someone has placed a bucket beneath a coolant valve. It is catching condensation that shouldn't exist. This part of the station regulates at 20 degrees flat, but the water is there, collecting slow, drop by drop, like time. You crouch to inspect the valve, but as your hand nears it, the metal shifts under your palm. Not temperature, not vibration, but recoil. Like something living had just pulled back. You stand. You don't touch it again. You climb 2 levels without realizing it. At the top of the shaft, you hear voices behind a sealed door. Young, fast, frantic. "He shut down the tractor beam. I saw him." Another voice, harsher. "If they get away, it's our necks." A third, almost laughing. "He was wearing armor. You know what they're talking about. Everyone knows now, though no one says it officially. Some say it was rebels. Others say it was something worse. No one uses names. In the dim corridor near the detention cells, you find marks, not from weapons, not from boots, but from something being dragged. The floor is scored in 2 wide arcs, as if a large body was moved with care. There's no trail of blood, no signs of distress, only the absence of sound, the kind of quiet that builds a story without telling it. On the wall nearby, a handprint, gloved, smeared in ash, points downward toward nowhere. You don't follow it. Back in the system's bay, your console has reset itself. Logs are erased. Your login rejected. You override manually and regain access, but something is off. The interface has changed, not visually, but rhythmically. The diagnostics flash slower, like the system is breathing heavier. You pull a feed from central navigation and find it empty. No tracking, no updates. The station isn't monitoring anything anymore, not because it can't, because it chose not to. You sit in silence, and in the static on your pad, a voice emerges. Faint, cut by transmission loss. But there, he's here, the boy. Another voice, older, trembling with awe or terror. You can't tell. Skywalker. Then silence again. And you remain at your post, listening to the sound of systems pretending not to fail, of walls that now exhale with memory. And of your own pulse, caught between events too large for understanding, but too close to ignore. You return to the access spine near Hangar Bay 327, not because you've been called, but because something about that place feels less still than the rest of the station, as if events too large to name have moved through recently and left a thermal trace in the air that hasn't yet cooled. And as you approach, the scent shifts ozone, plasma, melted polymer, the aftermath of a skirmish erased too quickly, as though silence was more important than truth. Panel to your left is ajar. That shouldn't be possible. These mechanisms require full clearance. Inside, a mess of fused circuits, torn conduits, and something else. Fibers you don't recognize, smooth and pale, like synthetic nerves cut from something alive. You close the hatch without logging it. Something about it wants to be forgotten. As you cross the mezzanine overlooking the bay, you see a shuttle, small, sharp, unmarked, sitting too neatly in the shadow of a wall. 2 troopers stand nearby, but they're not at ease. Their posture is too tense, their hands too close to their weapons. One mutters, just audible, "He went in alone?" The other doesn't answer. You don't look at them. You don't stop. Your presence isn't requested. Not yet. You continue toward the reactor coolant trench, where the temperature never holds steady anymore. The walls damp with a kind of artificial sweat that makes tools slip from your grip if you aren't careful. The fan systems cycle in a loop that doesn't match your schematics. 32 seconds on, 27 off, like something is pacing behind the ventilation. You sit near a damaged junction, pretending to diagnose a system you already fixed last week, just to listen. Down the corridor, two engineers speak softly. They say he's got a light subber. The other snorts. So did the old ones. Didn't save them. This one's different. A pause. They say he doesn't even look angry. Just sure. That's worse. They walk away. Later, near a shaft terminal where shuttle telemetry used to cycle live, you find an officer staring at a blank screen. His rank bars are smudged with carbon. He doesn't notice you at first. Then he turns slightly and says, "There used to be a command here. You wait. Now it just waits. Like it's listening for someone else." You ask gently, "Is there a fault?" He doesn't answer. He walks away. You don't try to fix the screen. Whatever it's waiting for isn't technical. In the lower deck, a stormtrooper helmet lies alone near the edge of a utility alcove. No armor, no blood. Just the helmet, clean on the outside, scuffed inside, like someone wore it too tightly for too long. You pick it up and hold it for a moment, not to inspect, but to feel the weight of identity reduced to shape. You set it back down and move on. As you pass through the corridor near the detention center, again, you see new marks on the wall, lines etched by metal scraping in haste. Something was moved fast, something heavy. You hear a voice from the end of the corridor. Not to you, not to anyone. Just spoken aloud, like a thought too full to keep inside. He walked right past the guards. Didn't flinch, like he already knew how it ends. You don't stop to see who said it. At the next junction, you hear a scream. Short, sharp, then cut off like someone remembered too late where they were. You turn, but no one is there. Just the sound of boots retreating down metal, and a door hissing shut a second too late to be timed. You return to your maintenance post. The room is colder than it should be. Your tools are misaligned, as if someone borrowed them and returned them with unfamiliar hands. On your console, a message blinks. Not official, not logged. Just one phrase. Prepare the core. No ID, no timestamp, no authorization. You don't acknowledge it, but you stay seated and listen to the quiet as it grows teeth. You remain in your seat long after the message vanishes, not because you expect a follow-up, but because leaving now would feel like stepping out from under shelter just before the storm lands. And though the lights overhead no longer flicker in rhythm, they pulse occasionally in what feels like hesitation, as though the very power grid is questioning its allegiance. The coolant flow beside your panel has dropped by 2 degrees, and you notice it without thinking the kind of shift you were trained to detect, though. Now it feels less like a symptom and more like a decision the station made on its own. You reach out, hand hovering above the console, but don't touch it yet. Your fingers remember heat even when none is present, like the metal has started to remember fire before fire arrives. You stand eventually and move toward the diagnostics shaft, not to perform any task, but because movement feels like the only rebellion left. The hallway smells different now. The recycled air has taken on the scent of metal turned inside out, like armor peeled back from something living. You hear a clank ahead, soft and uncertain. As you turn the corner, you see a black protocol droid standing too still beside a service panel. Its eyes are lit. It watches you. Says nothing. You pass. It does not turn its head, but you feel the weight of being observed long after it's out of sight. At the next junction, a stormtrooper rushes by, alone, breath-sharp, helmet tucked under his arm. He doesn't see you, or pretends not to. You hear him mutter, not to you, but to something internal. They're not supposed to be here. This isn't part of the plan. Then he's gone. You move through a lower passage, where fuel lines curve overhead like veins, too close to the surface. The walls sweat heat, even when the displays show stable temperatures. You duck beneath a bulkhead and hear a voice behind it. Filtered, electronic, unmistakable. Vader. You freeze. He's not speaking to you. His voice is distant, but clear, as if it bypasses walls. He is close. I can feel him. Another voice responds, tighter, older. If you confront him now, we lose control. Then silence. You do not breathe for a long moment. When you exhale, it feels borrowed. You ascend to the observation deck, though it's not part of your duties. And when the blast doors slide open, the space is dimmed, not offline, just dark by intention. At the far end of the room stands an officer in full dress, his back to you, hands clasped behind him. He does not acknowledge your presence, but you recognize the profile, Tarkin. He speaks to no one. They are aboard. Let them believe they are unseen. Then he turns slightly, as if hearing your breath. You retreat before he sees you. The doors close behind you with too much finality. You descend again into the maintenance ring where the station's pulse can be felt without instrumentation. You pass other workers, fewer now, moving slower. One nods at you but says nothing. Another adjusts a panel without tools, as if going through the motions only for memory's sake. In a corner, someone has written in marker, "If he makes it to the core, none of this mattered." You sit near the ventilation hub and rest your back against the panel that hums out of rhythm. You don't sleep, but you stop moving. For a while, there is only the sound of breath, yours and maybe the station's. Then something shifts. Not sound, not light, but presence. You feel it, the way air changes before a lightning strike. Somewhere far above, too far for a technician to ever reach, a boy has made a choice. You don't know what it is, but the station does. Every surface tightens, every wire goes still, and you wait, still just a mechanic, still just one set of hands on a vessel too large for sense, but closer now, closer to something final. You shift your weight slowly, bones aching not from exertion, but from stillness stretched too long across steel. And as you rise from the floor, the hum beneath your boots feels less like machinery and more like warning. The kind of vibration an animal feels before a quake, instinctual and unsourced. You move back toward the central shaft junction, where shadows curl along the ceiling like spilled oil, and find the corridor empty, but wrong. The lights don't just flicker now. They hesitate, dimming like eyes forced shut, then reopening too wide, too bright. You look away from the ceiling and see someone already standing there, tall, still, cloaked in black, not armored like the troopers, not robed like the officers. Just still, watching. Not Vader, you would know, but someone with clearance and silence, both stitched into their presence. You nod. They say nothing. After a breath too long, they walk away. Their footsteps do not echo. You follow in the opposite direction. You reach the equipment hold where damaged panels used to be stacked before disposal, and now they sit untouched, as if whatever caused the damage is still watching them. Among the wreckage, a datapad blinks once. Slowly, you lift it. The log is short, no encryption, no headers, no ID trace. Just 4 words. She is not alone. You set the pad down, but the phrase sticks like static in your ribs. You know who they mean. Everyone does. They just don't say her name anymore. Not since the corridor near detention block A20. 3 collapsed and was welded shut without any formal report. Someone said they heard Chewbacca's roar there. Someone else said no such creature was on board. You don't ask. You don't need to. Your next stop is the power conduit ring, not because you have orders, but because the flow has been inconsistent for hours, and you still remember what consistent felt like. The outer console pulses red, then fades to black, then returns without your touch. As you step through the hatch, you hear voices again. 2 men, not in uniform, crouched near a generator panel. One says, "They've made it to the hangar." The other, "Then we're already ghosts." You slow your pace, trying not to draw notice, but one of them glances over. You crew? He asks. You nod. He gestures to the failing conduit. Won't matter in a few minutes. Still, good habit, I guess. You crouch beside them, though you do nothing. There's no repair left to perform, only ritual. You leave when they fall quiet. Down the spine of the western vent corridor, you hear a single siren, long and thin and fading. Not urgent, not panicked, more like a song sung out of tune by a system that forgot how to speak. You follow it toward your former quarters, not because you want to return, but because your badge still grants you access, and the console inside may be the last functional one near this deck. When you enter, nothing is as you left it. The cot has been folded, your tools reorganized. A second badge lies on your table. Unfamiliar name, same clearance. You don't touch it. The console powers on without delay. It displays a schematic you didn't request. The map of the station. One section blinking red. Reactor core junction bridge. The red doesn't mean damage. It means access. Someone is there now. You exit without shutting the screen down. In the hallway beyond, you find a stormtrooper leaning against the wall. Not injured, just done. His helmet hangs from one hand. His eyes are closed. As you pass, he opens one eye and mutters, "I heard it was Skywalker." You stop, but don't answer. He continues, "Not a man." Not really, just the shape of one. You nod once. He doesn't watch you go. You return to the mid-level hangar shaft, where the air smells like ion burns. An oil slick, and overhead, a low vibration spreads through the walls, like sound coming from the bones of the station, not its speakers. Something has shifted in the trajectory of movement. You don't need to check diagnostics. You feel it, the arc toward the end, and yet everything continues. Still corridors, still lights, still breath, but tighter now, tighter. You pass a series of sealed chambers, once used for drone diagnostics, now dark and quiet, except one. The door is cracked open slightly, not from malfunction, but hesitation, as if someone meant to return and never did. Inside, the hum of a low-frequency data drive cycles on repeat, a signal loop with no origin. You listen for a moment, then realize the pattern isn't random. It's Morse, Imperial variant. You haven't read that in years. It spells just one word, again and again. Run. You don't decode it out loud. You don't acknowledge it at all. But you close the door quietly behind you. Further along the service causeway, you see the silhouette of someone kneeling beside a fuel pump manifold. Too slender for a trooper, too still for a droid. You recognize the posture before the face. The senior deck chief from your first month on shift, the one who used to whistle tuneless melodies between diagnostics. He doesn't look up. His hands are moving in slow patterns, checking pressure lines that no longer carry anything but residual heat. As you pass, he says softly, "They let them out." You stop. "Who?" you ask, without turning. He answers without voice, only breath. "Everyone." Then he starts to hum again. You leave him in the dark. On deck H6, a conversation echoes too clearly. You hear it before you round the bend. A female voice, sharp, fast. He found the tracking beacon. He disabled it. A male voice, clipped under pressure. Then we've lost our leverage. A silence follows, filled only by the click of boots pacing. You don't risk being seen. You wait. Then the woman again. The girl's more dangerous than the pilot. You don't hear the reply. A door seals. Footsteps vanish. You keep walking. Somewhere near the waste disposal alignment track, you find a stormtrooper helmet placed carefully on a railing facing the corridor. It has been cleaned, the kind of detail only someone trying to honor something would bother with. You don't touch it. Someone cared. That's rare now. On a wall nearby, someone has scratched in tiny lettering. He moved like a shadow and left fire behind him. You don't ask who. You already know. Down a hatch you once used to bypass a coolant spill, the lights have gone completely. Not flickering, not broken, just off. Like the system no longer believes it needs to illuminate the dead. You descend by memory. Your boots land where they always did. But the air tastes of dust, not heat. The kind of dust that only appears when nothing's moved in too long. You pause beside a locked service door. Behind it, something hums in a tone you don't recognize. Not engine, not life support, not human. Just ... Presence. You turn away. Near the main communications tower, long since cut off from real signal, a lone console still blinks intermittently, trying to re-establish a feed. You sit beside it, not because you expect a message, but because you want to be where messages used to arrive. You run a diagnostic. Nothing. You check for encrypted pings. Nothing. You check on logged messages. 1. From hours ago, maybe days, it simply reads, "He's inside." You delete it. There's no point logging what everyone already knows. You make your way past storage vaults and auxiliary launch bays, areas once restricted, now abandoned out of apathy, not policy. A droid passes you, old, slow, carrying nothing. It chirps once. You ignore it. When it chirps again, it sounds like goodbye. But you know that's projection. You just keep walking. The hallway to your original training sector is almost completely silent. You haven't been here since your orientation cycle. You pause beside the wall where the schedule used to be posted. The screen is dead. But faintly etched into the frame is a phrase, barely visible unless you knew to look. The Force is with the broken. You don't smile, but you do stay there longer than needed. Then you keep moving. The deeper you go, the more the air feels separate from pressure. Not heavy, not thin, just wrong. Like the station is breathing independently now, adjusting itself not for survival, but for legacy. You descend a maintenance shaft where nobody's gone in weeks. The bolts on the ladder are warm. The tunnel curves more than you remember. You don't fight the curve. You let it lead you. And somewhere, far behind you, something very old has started counting down. You emerge from the curved shaft into an access corridor that feels unfamiliar, despite having serviced it half a dozen times this cycle, and the reason reveals itself slowly. The markings on the bulkhead have changed, not physically, but perceptually. Repainted perhaps, or rearranged, like the architecture of the station is shifting just beneath the skin, like it's trying to confuse its own crew before whatever comes next. You pause beside a panel where emergency rations used to be stored, and you remember sharing those packets during your third rotation with a crewman who believed the Emperor was immortal, not in the mythic sense, but literally a clone with no end. That crewman is gone now, transferred, reassigned, erased, you never knew which. But his words return uninvited. Immortality is only terrifying if you re the one who survives. You wipe dust from the panel and move on. Further down the corridor, you hear voices not from nearby, but through the walls, low, overlapping. A conversation recorded and looped, or perhaps simply repeating in a place where no one bothers to listen anymore. You press your ear to the metal and make out fragments. He brought the droids here himself. And she resisted the mind probe longer than any of them. And we should have destroyed the Falcon when we had the chance. Then silence. The metal cools. You step away. You turn the corridor into a narrow technician-house hold and find 3 younger crewmen arguing in hushed tones around a wiring diagram that don't seem to belong to this deck. One sees you and stiffens. "You're here for the junction override?" he asks. You nod, though there is no such assignment. He doesn't press. "It won't matter," another one says. "He's already through security. Someone let him in." You don't ask who. You don't ask why. You kneel beside the open panel and run your hands across the conduit just to feel something solid. Past the next bend, you come across a drooping environmental control unit, dripping coolant onto the floor like sweat. And behind it, half buried in shadow, is a blaster scorch. Not fresh, but recent enough that the metal hasn't reoxidized, and it's angled low, too low for a fight, like someone was shot while crawling or surrendering. There is no body. You don't want to know. In the utility annex near section M3, the ceiling panels have buckled slightly from heat expansion, and someone has written across one in grease pencil. He said, "I am a Jedi," and then everything went white. You stare at the words for a while, before realizing your hand is trembling, not from fear, not from cold, but from the vibration under your feet, subtle, steady, the kind of vibration that doesn't come from machinery, but from alignment, from something massive falling into place. You continue into a corridor that should lead back toward the central ventilation tower, but the signage is missing, peeled away, or stolen, or erased. You navigate by instinct, past half-sealed doors and reeking ducts, until you reach a familiar set of access stairs, where a trooper helmet lies at the base, carefully placed, visor up. Next to it, a utility datapad displays the last logged report. Skywalker is in the core. No time stamp. No authorization code. Just the message. You leave it untouched. Climbing the stairs feels heavier than descending, like gravity has thickened, or your body is now aware of something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Each step groans faintly beneath your boots, not from wear, but from refusal, as though the station itself has begun to resist upward movement. You reach the top and step into a corridor where the walls are colder than they should be. The lighting here is even too even, not natural, more like an autopsy lab pretending to be a hallway. There are no crew, no noise, only the illusion of order. You find yourself outside the old sensor calibration room, a place you once worked alone for 12 hours straight without realizing the shift had ended, and the memory makes your hands ache even before you open the door. Inside, the consoles are dark, but someone has powered up the central display. A holo image spins slowly above it, a schematic of the Millennium Falcon, outlined in red. Underneath, 4 words pulse in slow rhythm. No escape from inside. You shut it down. And as you step back into the corridor, you hear footsteps, quick, light, distant. A voice calls out, firm but young, echoing faintly down the hall. "This way, R2." Then silence. No droids. No one. Just the echo, fading. You keep walking. You are almost ready to stop walking. But not yet. Not yet. Not yet. You step into the central spine corridor expecting routine, but nothing responds the way it should. The doors open half a second too late. The lights above pulse not in malfunction, but in hesitation, like the system is deciding whether or not you deserve illumination. The floor beneath your boots hums with a new rhythm, less mechanical, more like the pulse of a living thing trying to resist sedation. A waste chute nearby cycles twice without input, the internal system dumping nothing but air into a void that should be sealed. You stop, glance back, but no one follows. The corridor behind you is still, overly still, not abandoned, but expectant, like it knows what's about to happen before you do. A low tone sounds from deeper in the deck, not an alarm, not a breach warning, just a single resonant pulse, the kind that comes before decisions. You follow it instinctively, moving past control junctions and empty droid stations, each one darker than the last, not shut down, waiting. On a monitor half-lit by flickering data feed, a transmission loops silently. A single TIE squadron, fully deployed, rotating in slow formation. But something is wrong with the image. It's 5 minutes behind real time. The station is watching itself, but late. You reach the North Junction access lift. The display above the door is dark, but the button panel flickers faintly, as if unsure whether the lift still exists. When you press it, nothing happens. Not a denial. Not a refusal. Just nothing. You turn. Behind you, The floor glows once, briefly. A power surge, maybe, or a breath. Then you hear voices, not nearby, but projected faintly over the internal comms, as if someone's trying to override the silence. A woman's voice, low, calm, certain. We've confirmed presence in the core. Repeat, he's reached the core. Another voice, panicked, replies, you're not authorized for that channel. Silence again. Then only static. You descend manually, service ladder, level by level, each one warmer than the last, though the temperature readout on your pad holds steady. Somewhere near deck 3, you smell something you haven't in weeks. Ion discharge, sharp and immediate. Something has been fired, not nearby, but recent. You keep moving, hands sweating against the steel, eyes stinging from recycled air. At the landing bay crosswalk, the blast shields are sealed. That only happens when a ship is incoming or outgoing during emergency protocol. But no lights signal launch. No engines rumble. The shield is up not to protect, but to delay visibility. Someone doesn't want the crew to see what's coming. You step back into a corridor and hear nothing. Not silence. Nothing. The kind of nothing that replaces memory. You check your comms. No signal. You try again. Still nothing. On the wall to your right, someone has scratched into the metal with the blunt edge of a tool. He's not here for rescue. You don't stop walking. The Death Star is breathing, and the air is turning sharp. You find yourself pulled toward the central data relay corridors, not by instruction or assignment, but by instinct, by the way the lighting there flickers less, by the thin tension in the air, like static waiting to strike. When you arrive, the hallway is half-lit and lined with sealed containers, but one of them is open, not pried, just ajar, like someone left in a hurry. Inside, nothing. No supplies, no tools. Just an empty crate, a discarded datapad, and one boot. The pad is cracked, but still glowing, looping a fragment of audio. Sector 4B evacuating now. Do not wait. Do not. It ends. No timestamp. No source. You step back, but the image stays with you, the emptiness more violent than chaos. Down the corridor, a group of technicians pass by you in silence. They don't look panicked, but purposeful, focused. They walk like people who had received an order that wasn't written down, like they're carrying something heavier than tools. One glances at you and almost says something, but chooses instead to nod once and disappear behind a sealed door marked Auxiliary Propulsion Diagnostics. That section was decommissioned months ago. A sound breaks the pattern. Boots, running, not marching, not ordered, running, from the opposite direction. A trooper, helmet off, sweat on his brow, stumbles into view. He stops when he sees you, wide-eyed, disoriented. They're not going to stop it, he says, like the words were loaded into him and only now released. They're sealing decks, not locking them, sealing. You ask him what he means. He backs away, muttering, it's not an accident. It's them. It's Skywalker, or the droids, or all of it. Then he runs again. You pass a surveillance post that once monitored outbound traffic. It's abandoned, the screens looping corrupted Starfield footage, and the echo of a comms message you barely catch. Vader is en route. The words are cold, clinical, but everything inside you tenses. You've never seen him, but you've felt what happens when he passes through a corridor. The silence thickens. People vanish, and some systems don't recover. You move toward the sublevel stairwell that links to the engineering decks. It should be guarded, but no one is there. Just a ration wrapper floating in the recycled air. A wrench dropped and never retrieved. And on the far wall, a patch of soot that doesn't match fire protocol. Too precise, too small. Blaster fire. Suppressed. At the base of the stairs, someone left a message written in coolant. If you're reading this, it's too late to run. Stay still. You don't obey. You keep walking, not because you have a reason, but because stillness now feels like consent. And when you reach the next junction, the lights flicker once and then go dead entirely. In that darkness, you hear a single sound, the click of boots. Not many, just one, deliberate, even, approaching, then gone. And you realize the station has stopped pretending everything is fine. You press forward through the darkened hallway, one hand trailing the wall not for balance, but to assure yourself that the corridor still exists. The overhead lights remain cold, but something deeper begins to pulse. Not light, not sound, just the sensation that space itself is thinning, as if the distance between rooms has collapsed into breath. Somewhere near the surveillance tier, you hear voices, not recorded this time, not distorted, but live. They're close. You slow your pace. Commander, the tractor beam controls are offline. Someone shut them down from inside. The first voice responds, sharp. Then find them. Before he does, you edge toward the corridor junction, peeping low. Around the bend, you catch a glimpse of them. Two officers in black Imperial uniforms, conferring near a console glowing too brightly in the dark. One of them turns, and you recognize him instantly, not from name, but posture. Grand Moff Tarkin. The stoop of certainty. The stillness of someone who believes the station bends around his decisions. He says, prepare the firing sequence. Let Lord Vader deal with the intruder. Then they vanish down the hall, doors hissing closed behind them. You step back into a corridor and hear nothing. Not silence, nothing. The kind of nothing that replaces memory. You check your comms. No signal. You try again. Still nothing. On the wall to your right, someone has scratched into the metal with the blunt edge of a tool. He's not here for rescue. You don't stop walking. The Death Star is breathing, and the air is turning sharp. You find yourself pulled toward the central data relay corridors, not by instruction or assignment, but by instinct, by the way the lighting there flickers less, by the thin tension in the air like static waiting to strike. When you arrive, the hallway is half lit and lined with sealed containers, but one of them is open. Not pried, just ajar, like someone left in a hurry. Inside, nothing. No supplies, no tools. Just an empty crate, a discarded data pad, and one boot. The pad is cracked, but still glowing, looping a fragment of audio. Sector 4B evacuating now. Do not wait. Do not. It ends. No timestamp. No source. You step back, but the image stays with you. The emptiness more violent than chaos. Down the corridor, a group of technicians pass by you in silence. They don't look panicked, but purposeful. Focused. They walk like people who have received an order that wasn't written down, like they're carrying something heavier than tools. One glances at you and almost says something, but chooses instead to nod once and disappear behind a sealed door marked Auxiliary Propulsion Diagnostics. That section was decommissioned months ago. A sound breaks the pattern. Boots running, not marching, not ordered, running from the opposite direction. A trooper, helmet off, sweat on his brow, stumbles into view. He stops when he sees you, wide-eyed, disoriented. They're not going to stop it, he says, like the words were loaded into him and only now released. They're sealing decks, not locking them, sealing. You ask him what he means. He backs away, muttering, it's not an accident. It's them. It's Skywalker, or the droids, or all of it. Then he runs again. You pass a surveillance post that once monitored outbound traffic. It's abandoned, the screens looping corrupted Starfield footage, and the echo of a comms message you barely catch. Vader is en route. The words are cold, clinical, but everything inside you tenses. You've never seen him, but you've felt what happens when he passes through a corridor. The silence thickens. People vanish, and some systems don't recover. You move toward the sublevel stairwell that links to the engineering decks. It should be guarded, but no one is there. Just a ration wrapper floating in the recycled air. A wrench dropped and never retrieved. And on the far wall, a patch of soot that doesn't match fire protocol. Too precise, too small. Blaster fire, suppressed. At the base of the stairs, someone left a message written in coolant. If you're reading this, it's too late to run. Stay still. You don't obey. You keep walking. Not because you have a reason, but because stillness now feels like consent. And when you reach the next junction, the lights flicker once and then go dead entirely. In that darkness, you hear a single sound, the click of boots. Not many, just one, deliberate, even, approaching, then gone. And you realize the station has stopped pretending everything is fine. You press forward through the darkened hallway, one hand trailing the wall, not for balance, but to assure yourself that the corridor still exists. The overhead lights remain cold, but something deeper begins to pulse. Not light, not sound, just the sensation that space itself is thinning, as if the distance between rooms has collapsed into breath. Somewhere near the surveillance tier, you hear voices, not recorded this time, not distorted, but live. They're close. You slow your pace. Commander, the tractor beam controls are offline. Someone shut them down from inside. The first voice responds, sharp. Then find them. Before he does, you edge toward the corridor junction, keeping low. Around the bend, you catch a glimpse of them. Two officers in black Imperial uniforms, conferring near a console glowing too brightly in the dark. One of them turns, and you recognize him instantly, not from name, but posture. Grand Moff Tarkin. The stoop of certainty. The stillness of someone who believes the station bends around his decisions. He says, prepare the firing sequence. Let Lord Vader deal with the intruder. Then they vanish down the hall, doors hissing closed behind them. You remain in shadow, heartbeat matching the slow hiss of nearby pressure vents. Something cracks in your earpiece, a comm signal breaking through for only a second. A woman's voice again. They're splitting up. He went alone. Silence. You don't know who he is, but everyone does. You descend again toward the thermal control center, though every part of you says not to. You pass a wall where someone has painted the symbol of the rebellion. Sloppy, urgent, half-scrubbed. Beneath it, hope is louder than silence. The corridor beyond it has been stripped of its panels. Wires hang loose, like veins. Someone's been through here recently, not to sabotage, to understand. Then, a sound you know too well. A lightsaber igniting. Close, the unmistakable thrum. Not red, not Sith, blue. Alive, you press back against the wall. Someone shouts, there is no escape. You know the voice. Vader. It shakes through the bulkheads. You hear metal clash, sparks hiss, and then silence again. No footfalls, no retreat, no command. You move. Not toward the sound, but away. Not in fear, but reverence. Whatever happened back there is finished, and the station now holds its breath. You step into a corridor with a window looking out into the black. Through the glass, you see debris floating, not from combat. From inside, something is already fractured. You realize it's near the exhaust port, and you understand, distantly, what that could mean. You keep walking. Everything is waiting. You walk faster now, not because there's anywhere to reach, but because the air itself has changed. Not pressure, not oxygen levels, but the feeling that the station is starting to close its eyes. The lights flicker with more intention, like the rhythm of a slowing heart. Every junction you pass looks almost right, but not quite. A door left too wide open, a console still cycling through code after being abandoned, an officer's glove left, folded neatly on a bench, as if they simply disappeared mid-motion. You descend into a secondary engineering bay and find a technician sitting alone, staring at a frozen monitor. He doesn't react to your presence until you're directly in front of him. Did you feel it? He asks. You don't answer. They were here. All of them. The princess, the smuggler, the boy. They walked right through this level. No alarms. No resistance. Like ghosts. You ask him what they were doing. Looking for a way out, he whispers. Or maybe in. You leave him behind. His silence is heavier than any warning. At the base of the bay, you pass a burned-out corridor where the walls have begun to warp inward. Not from impact, from heat. Something massive passed nearby, and it didn't touch, but changed everything. You think of the legends. Jedi, rebellion, the Force, not as power, but as gravity. And this station is now in orbit around something inevitable. You pass 2 stormtroopers in full armor, standing motionless outside a sealed door. You expect them to stop you, but they say nothing. One simply turns his head as you walk past and speaks, not to you, but maybe to himself. It was him. I saw him. He didn't look like a soldier. He looked like a question that finally got answered. Down the hallway, a klaxon sounds once. Not a full alarm, just a single aching note. Then silence. Then another, 3 beats later. Manual override, not command. Somewhere, someone is hitting the failsafes. Someone who no longer believes in procedure. In the communication relay hub, you find a chair overturned, a mug of caf still steaming. That's not possible. It should have gone cold hours ago. But the warmth is there, and with it, the knowledge. They were just here. Whoever sat in this room, they were watching the last few minutes of order, and then they stood and they left, and they knew something you don't. You move toward the north exhaust access tunnel. The air is colder here, thin. You hear something crack in the ceiling. Not loudly, but it keeps cracking. Again, again. A red light begins blinking at the far end of the tunnel. You don't know what it means. You don't need to. You know what's next. You feel it, like breath before flame. You step through the last bulkhead without thinking, drawn forward by a gravity that has nothing to do with mass. The red light above pulses in a slow, dying rhythm, as if trying to keep time with a countdown no one can see. The corridor ahead is strangely clean. No scorch marks, no tools, no evidence of retreat. Just emptiness that feels arranged, as though the station itself has prepared this hallway for its own death. Far ahead, at the mouth of a vent shaft, a figure moves. Just a shadow in silhouette. Small, fast. A person crawling into position, dragging something behind them. You can't make out the details, but the posture is unmistakable. Purpose, urgency, finality. And then they vanish into the shaft. The air changes again, not the temperature, the shape of it. It presses in, not from outside, but from every direction at once. You hear a low hum start to build beneath your feet, beneath the metal, beneath the bones of the station. Not a system hum, not power, not life support, destiny. You turn. You run. Not away. There is no away, but toward the nearest maintenance alcove. The same kind you've used 1,000 times, always for repair, never for refuge. You override the manual seal, step inside, and shut the door. No alarms now. No lights. Just the final moment stretching into forever. And then, a ripple. You don't hear it. You feel it. In your lungs. In your teeth. In the old scar near your spine that's never fully healed. The ripple expands and everything becomes still. The kind of stillness that precedes unmaking. The kind that has no witness. Then the sound comes, not in your ears, but in your chest. A thunder without origin. A collapse of meaning. A brightness that doesn't come from light, but from the sudden absence of shadow. And then there is no corridor, no panel, no air, no you. Just a sphere of annihilation, expanding at the speed of judgment. just fire folding inward, turning metal and memory into ash. The Death Star dies in silence. You are gone before the sound reaches your bones. And then not even silence remains.